Kate was a nice, well-mannered girl. She studied well, took dance classes, and spoke 3 languages. Allison, her mother, did her best to ensure that her daughter could get a good education. She had 2 jobs, earned some extra money as a translator, and even as a private tutor. The money was enough, and Kate could afford to go to the university even on a paid basis. But she was lucky and got a scholarship. Kate dreamed of becoming an interpreter and traveling around the world. But as it often happens, we make plans and dream, but fate makes adjustments and sharply changes the direction of our life. In her 2nd year, trouble occurred. Allison was diagnosed with inoperable cancer. She worked so hard that she had no time to take care of her health, and this was the result. Doctors offered Allison chemotherapy treatments, but she refused because she didn't see the point in it. Kate cried and begged her mother to accept it. "Katie, sweetie, what's the point of this? Tell me. Everything is already clear. Chemotherapy won't help me. That's what the doctors say. I'll be gone soon anyway, but without chemotherapy, I'll keep my hair. Also, chemotherapy is very difficult to tolerate, as everyone who has undergone it says. I don't want to, sweetheart. You can't convince me." "Mommy, what if a miracle happens and the chemo helps? Maybe it's worth a try. You're the only one I have. How can I live without you? Let's give it a try." "No, Kate. I've made up my mind. I won't try chemotherapy, and let's drop the subject." But Kate did not want to put up with the situation. She began to search the internet to find similar cases and possible solutions to the problem, and came across one very interesting blog in which a man described how he overcame the disease. Kate decided to contact him. He answered right away and offered her help absolutely free of charge. But there was one problem. He lived in Australia. She urgently needed to find the money for the tickets, and she couldn't even imagine how much a ticket to Australia would cost. When she checked the prices, she felt unwell. They didn't have that kind of money. Herman, that was his name, insisted that every minute counted. They say the sooner you start, the better the chances for a successful recovery. But Kate had a second problem. She had to somehow convince her mother of the necessity of this trip, and it was just as difficult as finding the money. Kate called her friend Marie, wanting to ask for help, and arranged a meeting with her. What Kate absolutely loved about her friend was that she was always there for her. Whenever she called, Marie would immediately rush to help. Kate described her situation and asked if Marie knew anyone she could borrow a large sum of money from. "Kate, sorry, but I don't know anyone who could borrow you that money. If there was not that much, I could, but I don't think anyone would borrow the amounts you need so easily." "What can I do? I can't stop trying to save my mother." "I understand that, but I don't know how to help you yet." And friends headed home. Kate needed to talk to her mother. She thought out every word, every sentence, but she knew that the conversation would go the other way anyway. Never before had she been able to talk the way she thought of it beforehand. Mother sat by the window, staring thoughtfully into the distance. Kate came into the room on shaky legs. She realized how important this conversation was, and she could not postpone it. The problem had to be resolved as soon as possible. Perhaps her mother had acquaintances who could borrow such a sum of money, but Kate decided to start with something else. "Mom, I've long wanted to ask, why weren't you married to my father? And actually, where is he? What if I have rich grandparents and they dream to meet me?" Allison looked sadly at her daughter. "It's a long and unpleasant story. I understand, but you never told it to me. Mom, I'm grown up now. Can I finally get the story of my birth?" "Okay, then go make us peppermint tea, because it's a long story." 5 minutes later, Kate brought 2 huge cups of tea and sat down in the chair in front of her mother. It was truly important for her to know at least something about her father. She remembered being called fatherless when she was a child. crying quietly into her pillow so her mother wouldn't notice. She made up all sorts of stories about her father for her classmates. Kate did not want to believe that her father was a dishonest person. And now she looked at her mother and hoped to hear something good about the man who had given her life. We met when I was 19 and Alex was 23. He had just graduated from college and was back in his hometown. By that time, his father had been dead for several years. His father was a very powerful person in our town, and his mother was even more powerful. Everyone was afraid of this family, but I didn't care. I was head over heels in love. Alex was also in love. I could see and feel it. We were like two halves of the same whole. 3 months later, he told me that he was going to England for an internship for 3 years and offered to quit university and go with him. I didn't say yes right away because it was important for me to get an education, but I also understood that this internship was very important to him and he wouldn't turn it down. He proposed to me so that we could go as a family. Eventually, I accepted the offer and agreed to go with him. We began to prepare for the wedding, but we had to meet my parents. One night, Alex told me that his mother invited us for dinner tomorrow. When we arrived at their house, a tall, stately woman came out to meet us. She looked like some kind of VIP who had condescended to talk to the servants, and she behaved in the same way she looked. She did not say a word to me during the entire evening, and all the questions she asked about me and my family, she asked Alex. I held on very difficult. I was uncomfortable feeling this dismissive attitude, but I endured it. I endured it for the sake of my future husband. We left, and I felt sick and disgusted. Alex tried to comfort me by saying that I shouldn't pay attention to her behavior, that she was always like that, and that we would leave soon and we wouldn't see her again. But I still felt bad. A few days later, I found out that I was expecting a baby, and I told Alex about it right away. He was genuinely happy about it, and the next evening, my future mother-in-law came to our house. She didn't even enter the apartment. She talked to me on the doorstep. Actually, it couldn't be even called a conversation. She threw a wad of money in my face and commanded me to solve the problem with the baby. Obviously, I refused. She looked at me with her brown eyes, turned around, and left. The only thing I heard her say in the end was, "Lord, do something so they'll never be together." And her request was fulfilled. That same evening, Alex died in a car accident. Mom could hardly hold back her tears. Kate looked at her mother in shock and could not believe such a story. "Mommy, what a disaster! Why didn't you ever tell me about it? After all, Daddy was a decent man and he loved us. That's different from what I thought all my life." I didn't want to think about it. It still hurts me to think about it. Mom paused and continued. "You look a lot like him." "Do you still have pictures of my father? At least one?" "Yes, I'll show you." Allison took out an envelope and pulled out some pictures. 2 pairs of happy eyes were looking at Kate. Even without her mother's story, it was clear that the picture showed a couple who were in love. "Daddy was very handsome. I understand you. It's impossible not to fall in love with someone like him." Kate didn't know what to do next. According to her script, she was supposed to get to the important conversation now. But her mother was already a bit stressed because of the memories. But the issue of treatment had to be resolved as soon as possible. And Kate told her mother that she had met Herman and his story that he had been cured of a similar disease, but at an even later stage, and that he was willing to help for free. But she would have to fly to Australia for that. Allison looked at her daughter in surprise. "Kate, why are you doing this? I do not believe in all these fairy tales. You're getting your hopes up for nothing. The doctors said that there is no chance, and I don't want to go to a stranger and live there for who knows how long at someone else's expense. This is not the way I'm used to living." "Mommy, my dear, please hear me. I have no one but you. If there is even a little hope of saving you, I will cling to it. You're still a very young woman. You still have a long life to live, and you deserve to take care of your grandchildren someday." Allison cried again. She had thought about it more than once herself. She was only 39 years old. It's too young to die. Should we really try? It could hardly be worse than it is now. Allison suddenly thought. "All right, Kate, I agree. Let's try." Kate couldn't even believe it at first. "Really? You're not kidding?" "No, I'm willing to try. How much money do we need?" Kate named the amount. Allison was speechless from shock. "Yes, it's a lot of money, I know, but life is priceless. I'll find the money," Kate said. "Wait, I collected some money for your wedding." Allison got up and went to the closet. She pulled out the jewelry box and then the money, and Kate was surprised. She had no idea they kept that much money at home. She counted it. "Not much is missing, and we'll need to buy some presents for Herman. But you also need to take some money for daily expenses," Kate said, happy that more than half of the amount was already there. After calling all her friends and acquaintances, Kate collected the needed amounts. The suitcase was packed, the gifts were bought, and her mother was ready. The flight was tomorrow. Kate and Marie took Allison to the airport, saw her off, and returned home. Kate asked her friend to stay for dinner. After dinner, Kate asked Marie, "Do you happen to know of any job opportunities? I want to get a job. I don't know how long Mom will have to stay there. Obviously, she'll need money." "Oh, I do. Just yesterday, my neighbor suggested me to go to some lady to earn some money. I can give you the address if you want." "What kind of job?" "Maid. You have to go to the grocery store, clean the house, do laundry, cook, and even walk her in the garden. A lonely old lady lives all alone. Apparently, she has money, but no one close to her. And she pays very well, but they say she's mean, very picky." "Oh, I'll be fine. Marie, thanks a lot. You're a true friend." Without postponing, Kate went to the address the very next day. As she approached the house, she was amazed. A huge 2-story house looked like a count's mansion, and in front of the house there was a huge garden. As she entered the gate, Kate realized that the owner of the house obviously loves luxury and honored herself as some kind of majestic person, because she had seen such houses and gardens only in movies about very rich people. There was no one in the garden, and she walked uncertainly toward the house. On the veranda, an elderly woman was sitting in an armchair and reading a book. "Hello, excuse me, I'm here about the job." The woman looked at Kate from head to toe, then looked into the girl's face and said loudly, "Do you have any work experience or any recommendations?" "No, I just really need a job. My mom is sick. I haven't worked before. I'm a student," Kate answered honestly. "Good for you for not lying. I don't tolerate lies. And what can you do?" "I can do everything. Washing, cleaning, cooking." "Very good. You can start right now," the lady condescendingly allowed. "What's your name?" "Kate." "All right, Kate, go to the kitchen and make me dinner." Kate suddenly sensed some sort of catch in this command, but she wasn't confused. "All right, what would you like? Are there any restrictions on food? Do you have any allergies?" "Good, smart girl," the lady said in a more friendly manner. "There's a list of foods on the table in that kitchen that I cannot eat, and everything else is okay." Kate quickly got used to the new house. After a week, the landlady, whose name was Isabella, asked Kate to move into her place. It was much more convenient that way. Kate agreed. It was not easy for her at the beginning, but when she realized that Isabella was so harmful from being lonely and it was possible to get along with her, Kate was quite good at it. A month passed. One morning, Isabella was unusually silent and sad. At such times, Kate tried not to bother her at all and just did her daily chores. But Isabella called Kate over to her place. "Cook me dinner and you can be off until tomorrow." It was very strange, because she usually asked Kate not to leave the house. It was as if she was afraid to stay alone. "Isabella, is something wrong?" "No, I just want to be alone. Today is a special day." She didn't finish and turned away. Kate saw tears in the eyes of this stern and arrogant woman. "Sorry, but I won't leave you alone in this condition." "Okay, then make us some tea. We'll sit in the garden together." This was something Kate had not expected at all. Isabella always ate alone, and now they were sitting in the garden, drinking tea. At some moments, Isabella bent over and a pendant opened around her neck. Kate saw the photo in the pendant and was dumbfounded. No way. It was impossible. The pendant had a photo of her father in it. Kate immediately understood everything. Now, she was looking at her employer with entirely different eyes. That look did not go unnoticed by Isabella. "Is something wrong, Kate?" Kate was a sincere and straightforward person. She really couldn't and wouldn't lie. "So that's who ruined my mother's life. Do you know who's in front of you?" Isabella's face changed. She was really afraid, and she was silent for several minutes. Despite her temper, Isabella was a very smart woman. She immediately understood what was going on. "This cannot be," she said faintly. "You are my granddaughter." "No, my grandparents are already in another world. I never knew the others. And for you, I am the one you wanted to get rid of." Kate stood up abruptly and wanted to leave. But Isabella suddenly jumped up very briskly and fell on her knees in front of her granddaughter. "Forgive me, for God's sake. Forgive me. I didn't think it would turn out this way." She cried so bitterly and sincerely that Kate suddenly felt sorry for her. "I feel guilty before you and before your mother. I know there is no forgiveness for me, but God has already punished me by taking away my only son. Please, I beg you, don't leave me." Kate was a very kind person, and she really felt sorry for this woman. She helped her up and sat down in the chair, and then there was a long, frank conversation. Kate told more about her mother's disease, and Isabella promised to pay all the expenses. Although Kate may not have forgiven her grandmother completely, she decided to give her a chance. Isabella insisted that Kate return to the university and hire another maid. There was no way she could let her granddaughter work in that status, and 6 months later, Allison returned from Australia. Herman really helped her heal. When Allison went to her oncologist and showed her lab results, he couldn't believe his eyes. "But that's impossible," was the only thing the doctor could say.
"All right, everyone's presentations are done," Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." "Absolutely right." His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hope to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.